So again, good morning and welcome everyone. I hope that you are enjoying your experience at the conference so far. And shout out to all of our sponsors. I don't have a sponsor slide here, but you've probably all seen them anyway in other sessions that you've been in. Shout out to those. But my name is Angela Parks, and I am a lead product manager for a team called Technology Advancement in IT at Humana. And my team helps people through journeys of working differently through various creative approaches. And today, I'm going to demonstrate a technique that may help you work differently too, and I hope that you find it beneficial to take back into the areas and pockets in which you work. Even it's a personal skill you can apply as well. And so I just have one question to ask everybody, and you guys can just audio unmute everybody, Dusty, or put it in the chat however you want. But have you ever had a problem that refused to go away? No matter what you did, sooner or later it would return, and perhaps just in another form. Anybody ever experienced that? You're like, I thought I fixed this, but here it is again, but it's just in a different form. Absolutely, Brandon. Yeah, me too. And if we all work in technology or related to technology or anywhere around technology, it seems like technology problems can rear their heads just in a different form, but may all have the same root cause or problem. And sometimes we don't really do a very good job of focusing on root cause, and sometimes we feel like we've put a fix on, but it's really more of a Band-Aid. So what we're going to do today is talk about this technique called the 5 Whys technique, and it's going to help us figure out how to come up with solutions to problems. Let me skip over here. I'm having troubles with my deck, my mouse clicker here. There we go. So let's talk about this. The root, what is it, the 5 Whys? Well, it's just a method of getting to the root of a problem quickly. And when a problem occurs, you want to drill down to the root cause of asking why 5 times. And then you end up with a countermeasure. It becomes apparent, and you follow it through to prevent the issue from reoccurring. So you see my little people here, they're all puzzles. We all have parts that we can put together, and we're all asking why 5 times together as a group, right? So you might be asking yourself, well, what is a countermeasure? Well, Oxford Dictionary defines it as an action taken to counter a danger or a threat. That's a formal and official Oxford Dictionary definition of it. So that's the goal today, is trying to figure out what the root of a problem is very quickly, and by using this technique. Click. But first, I want to pay homage to all of my history buffs out there, and to the people who, the fascinating people whom spent their entire lives dedicated to employing this technique, even before it was branded as a technique. And they used it, this technique, to invent and build machines that have impacted society that we know of today, and continue to use it. And it may feel a little bit of a jaunt from our topic, but I find it very respectful to remember that there are tidbits, and there are tidbits sprinkled throughout the history that are very relevant to understanding what this technique is. So let's talk about this first guy, Sakichi Toyoda. He is the founder of Toyota Industries Corporation. When you research him, you will find 2 powerful words to describe him: unwavering conviction. It's pretty powerful. He developed the 5 Whys technique through his experimentation, but it didn't become popular until like 1970-ish, around that time. But Sakichi was a Japanese inventor and industrialist. His father was a farmer and sought-after carpenter, and his mother was a weaver, well regarded. He combined both of their skills by inventing numerous wooden devices to automate weaving and devices for reeling and winding yarn. He started the Toyota family companies. His son, Kichiro Toyota, would later establish the world's largest automaker, Toyota. So you're probably thinking, hang on a second. Toyota, is that a typo? What is she saying? I'm being very explicit about pronouncing the D versus the T. So I'm going to tell you, Toyota was named after Toyota, Sakichi Toyota, the family name. Yes, but people thought it sounded better with a T, and it also meant the name could be written in Japanese with 8 strokes of a pen. So it worked for many different reasons for them. And so they ran with Toyota. But anyway, a little bit more about Sakichi. He graduated from elementary school and began working as an assistant with his father in the carpentry trade. I don't know about you all, but when my kids graduated elementary school, they were not fit to go work in a factory with me. I mean, then from the age of 14 or 15, he began to think about ways in which he could both be useful to people around him and serve his country, which is quite an admirable goal, right? And so then he started youth study groups and they spent their time together sharing knowledge and reading about written documentation that they had at their disposal. But despite all of this learning, he still wasn't finding how he could help society. So he thought to himself, well, Western civilization is based upon machinery, and machines are driven by steam. Steam-powered machinery requires coal, which is expensive. Some method must be contrived to replace steam as a motive force. So you can kind of see where he was kind of going, steam, this is needed, right? And kind of stepping there at a very young age. And at some point, he became interested in the hand loom by local farm families, which obviously his mother was a weaver, so you can kind of understand that. But he wanted to make it efficient. He wanted to improve the efficiency of it, and it could benefit so many people. So therein was his, this is what he wants to do, right? This is how he's going to help society, his community, his country, people. And then sadly, he passed away in 1930. He was 63 years old. But before he passed away, he left us with this 5 whys. There's a lot more history when I have presented this before that people have asked about, but for sake of time, we're going to skip through all of that because it is a very long jaunt of everything that he did in his time. The 5 whys is his way of inspecting the root cause of machine failures and inventing solutions to improve the machines. So that's a little bit about Sakichi. Let's get to this next slide. Right. So upon his death, there were about in 1935, there were 8 Toyota companies and in more than 13,000 workers. And to express their corporate philosophy and thoroughly impress upon their employees, top management, in honor of Sakichi, came up with these, what is called the Toyota precepts. And it's to clearly crystallize the spirit of Sakichi Toyota. And so I wanted to just kind of cover these. Maybe you guys can take these back, but I think that every time I get into a scenario and I'm having conversations with folks, I try to remember these words. So be practical and avoid frivolity. So if you're there to collaborate, let's do that. Having a little fun is cool, but there's always a time to get to work, right? Be ahead of the times through endless creativity, inquisitiveness, and pursuit of improvement. So if you're an Agile practitioner, or if you're not, it's kind of one of our, we want to be inquisitive, we want to be creative, and we are always in the pursuit of improvement. And be reverent and show gratitude for things great and small in thought and in deed. And so, if you are a Scrum Master, perhaps you're like a servant leader. You want to be, you want to show gratitude for the teams in which you're serving and just be a servant leader to them. Be kind and generous. Strive to create a warm and home-like atmosphere. Be contributive to the development and welfare of the country by working together regardless of position and faithfully fulfilling your duties. So Did you notice in these precepts, there's no 5 whys, but there's still 5 things in the precepts. So I always thought that was kind of interesting. A little bit more history here on 2 more guys that have, Sakichi Toyota, he had a nephew. His name was Eiji Toyota, and Eiji was the 5th president of Toyota and nephew of Sakichi. At age 23, he graduated from the University of Tokyo with a mechanical engineering degree and joined the family spinning business as an engineering trainee. So then by 1937, he transferred to the new family company called Toyota Motor Company. By 1950, he was sent to the United States to study American automotive industry. And at 1967, he was named the president of Toyota Motor Company. Through his tenure there, he led Toyota to an all-time high of 1.7 million vehicles sold in Japan and same number overseas, which is amazing. And so his approach, or Toyota's approach that he led, was keeping inventory an absolute minimum through a system called Kanban, or just in time, and ensuring that each step of the assembly process is performed correctly the first time, which you can kind of lean into that and think about how Eiji would have continued to use his uncle's 5 whys technique to inspect problems. Then we also have Taiichi Ono. And Taiichi Ono was also a pretty strong player here. So in 1932, he graduated from high school in Japan and joined the Toyota Spinning and Weaving Works. The Toyota family sold this business by 1943, and he was working as a production engineer in the new company called Toyota. So see the connection there. And in this position that he had at Toyota, he was met with a challenge to boost the company's productivity to compete with American automotive industry. So, his concepts were, he made this decision to get the situation under control. He needed to eradicate efficiency and eliminate waste within the company's production system, which this became the core of the Toyota production system called TPS. I don't know if anybody else has. Okay, Brent, sorry, didn't notice that note you had just a few seconds ago about not seeing anything. But some folks may be aware and be familiar with the TPS system. This is the fella that his claim to fame there. So I love a couple of his quotes. One of my favorites of his, though, is having no problems is the biggest problem of all. So again, if you're trying to talk about improvements, but no one can think of any way to improve anything at all, there might be a bigger problem. And then another good one that I like and enjoy sharing that is very closely related to the 5 whys technique is data is, of course, important in manufacturing, but he places the greatest emphasis on facts, which is going to be very important in the 5 whys technique that we'll get to here in just real quickly. That facts-based emphasis is very significant in the 5 whys because there are no assumptions or beliefs. It's just all based on facts. So moving on, after we have now paid homage to the history that I feel like is very important, wanted to explain a little bit more as well about Toyota, the TPS, and how this 5 whys technique didn't really become popular into the 70s, which is a long time to wait. I mean, Sakichi's already passed away. We've got these Toyota precepts. And then, to me, I was born in 1970, so to me, that just didn't seem like very long ago to have this robust and very powerful technique. But it is still used in Toyota today to solve problems. And with that, they have a go and see philosophy is what they call it. And what that means is that decision making is based on an in-depth understanding of what's actually happening on the shop floor, rather than on what someone in a boardroom thinks might be happening. I don't know if you all have had any experience with that or not, but you have this process. Maybe you've joined a new company, you've got this process, and you're like, well, why are things this way? And you find out that some people up here decided that this is how the tool is going to work or whatever, but they never do utilize this tool or this process. And then we have these inefficiencies. So I had the benefit of being awarded an opportunity with Humana last year to attend the Perfect Experience program at the Disney Institute last summer. And I learned a lot there, but one of the key things is that I learned they also operate under a go and see philosophy, but they even take it a step further, requiring all management to be in their processes 70% of their time. What does that mean? Well, that means that these folks are so intimately involved in what their customers are experiencing that they have the empowerment, if you will, to remove the painful parts of processes. They don't want to give their customers a job to do. They want to make sure that it's repeatable. Everything about their process is just as efficient and works as well. And if you've ever been at Disney, it's unbelievable the measures that they go through. But so just know that anytime that you are at an attraction or an experience at Disney, that there is a manager there experiencing it right there with you. And you may not be aware, but they're there. So yeah. So yeah, one of my favorite things here is the Disney, right? So Walt Disney, and he says, do what you do so well that, you know, people want to see it again and bring their friends. So when do you use the 5 whys technique? Well, most effectively used when to resolve simple or moderately difficult problems. You want to be focusing on troubleshooting, quality improvement, or problem solving. This is what the focus is for the technique. It's probably not going to be very well suitable to tackle complex or critical problems. The 5 whys lead you to pursue a single track, meaning if you start asking why and you come up with 5 or 6 things, explore each of those channels differently as a different potential, what has a different root cause. Don't try to be like, okay, well, these 6 things, and then we're going to figure out what the root causes of each of these things, and thinking that it's the same root causes is probably not. What you'll want to do then is do more of a cause effect analysis, or failure mode and effects analysis would be more effective on those more complex or critical problems. And Steve Jobs leaning into the guy, preparing us for the next is, his quote, great things in business are never done by one person, they're done by a team of people. The 5 whys is team oriented, to be done with a team. So that's very important to remember here. So how do you use the 5 whys technique? Well, first you want to assemble a team. These people are people who are familiar with the specifics of the problem and with the process that you're trying to fix. So somebody actually close to the work, not somebody in a boardroom that's removed, but maybe has accountability for it, of that nature. We want those people that are coming together to be empowered to make decisions, but those people are very familiar with the process and have actually experienced it. If someone is on the team that hasn't yet actually seen the problem themselves, we need to get them out on the floor to experience the problem and see it with their own eyes. It's very, very important. And you want to include someone to act as a facilitator. So this person is to keep the team focused in identifying an effective countermeasure. The next thing is you'll want to define the problem. So, again, if somebody in the room has an experienced problem, we need to get them to go see it in action for themselves. It's just very critical to do that. And then what you'll do is you'll write a brief and clear problem statement that the team agrees on. So, for example, in this scenario, Team A isn't meeting its response time targets, or software B release B resulted in too many rollback failures. And then you're going to ask the first why. Ask the team why the problem is occurring. Sounds simple, but it's not. Answering it requires some serious thought. They should be grounded in fact, not emotion or anything else. Speculation, well, I think this, or I feel this. It's all about, well, this is what happened, and it's grounded in facts. You want to document the team's answers in succinct phrases. So that's when that facilitator is also going to help. So an example of succinct phrases are volume of calls is too high, rather than the vague, we're overloaded. So if somebody mentions overloaded, we need somebody, that facilitator person, to perhaps guide it. What does that mean? Tell me more about that. And then we get down to the succinct answer. And then we're going to ask why 4 more times. And you repeat, building upon the previous responses. So every time you ask a why, the goal is to have a succinct phrase and as the next. And then the example in this scenario that I used is, why is the volume of calls too high? And going from there. Anybody have any questions so far? No? All right. So you might be thinking, maybe you sat in a session earlier or yesterday like I did, and it was kind of like people are a little bit sensitive to the word why. It kind of feels like interrogative, right? So how do you disarm defenses when you're trying to employ a technique that is focused on the word why? And it is a very powerful and strong word. Well, first of all, you want to level set expectations with the team. Explain to them what this technique is. If there is even one person that is not familiar with what the 5 whys technique is, take the time, a minute, 5 minutes to discuss it and explain it. It's totally worth the investment of that time spent. The thing that you don't want is somebody to feel like they're being interrogated. That's not the intention of the exercise. And you want to level set that this is a fact-based session, so please put your emotions aside. Emotions are important, but we're here to not point fingers at each other. We're here to not blame other areas or teams or whatever. We're just here to focus on the facts so that we can come up with a healthy countermeasure to go and experiment with a solution to solve the problem, to remove pain points and painful experiences. And then also disarming defenses is, that we are here, everyone is gathered, this group of folks, this small group of people are here to solve a problem. And that's what we're here to do. So feel honored to be brought to the table in this discussion. You've got knowledge, you've experienced the problem, you're regarded of having ideas, you're a thought leader, and all of those things should be considered awards to be brought in to figure out what maybe a potential solution is. So I'm going to give you an example here. So the very first problem statement that we have here is, our client is refusing to pay for leaflets we printed for them. And then we say, okay, why? Well, the delivery was late, so the leaflets couldn't be used. So there's no blame here. That's just a fact. The delivery was late. Why was the delivery late? Why couldn't the leaflets, why was the delivery late? Well, the job took longer than we expected. Why did the job take longer than we expected? Well, we ran out of printer ink. Why did we run out of printer ink? The ink was all used on a large last-minute order. Why was the ink all used on this large last-minute order? Well, we didn't have enough ink in stock, and we couldn't order new supplies in time. Okay, so we've asked our why 5 times, and now we want to come up with a countermeasure. We want to stop there. I mean, you may find the need to go 1 or 2 more whys deep if you feel that, but it has been scientifically proven that after 5 whys, you should be able to come up with a countermeasure to work with. So in this particular case, the countermeasure is, we need to find an ink supplier who can deliver at short notice so that we can continue to minimize inventory, reduce weight, and respond to customer demand. It's going to solve this problem of why we ran out of printer ink, and being able to respond to these customer orders and get them out so that it's just not a waste. Lost job. Anybody have any questions? Nope. All right. So I want to use a real live example. Oh, Thomas Gleason. What about why we did take on a last minute order over existing orders? That could have been another potential question. Why did we do that? And that maybe there's another another lane, Thomas. That's a really great point. I certainly would have asked that. Definitely. I'm going to play another video for you all. I hope you all enjoy this. Let me get this over here. Dun, 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 dun. Let me see if you are seeing that. Yes. Okay.
Years ago, the stone exterior was deteriorating at the Jefferson Memorial in Washington, D.C., a popular monument in the United States. Repairing the stone or painting over the worn areas was too expensive, so park rangers turned to root cause analysis and started asking why.
Why was the stone deteriorating?
High-powered sprayers were being used to wash the memorial every 2 weeks.
Why were high-powered washings needed every 2 weeks?
Because of bird droppings.
Asking why stopped because it seemed the cause was found. Workers put nets around the building, but they were unsightly, and the birds found ways around them. So it was back to the drawing board, or the 5 whys.
Why are there so many birds?
They come to feed on spiders.
Why are there so many spiders?
They feed on insects at night.
Why are there so many insects?
They're attracted by lights that shine on the memorial at night.
With a new cause found, questions stopped, and a plan was created to reduce the amount of time the memorial spent in the spotlight at night, and it worked. The insects were reduced by 90%, and with the root cause removed, the excessive cleaning was no longer needed. An unexpected benefit was a cost savings realized by using less electricity. This highlights how root cause analysis can involve trial and error, and how the 5 whys isn't always limited to exactly 5 questions. Read more about root cause analysis and the Jefferson Memorial story at the link below.
So yeah, who would have thought, right? Jefferson Memorial used the 5 whys technique to come up with a solution to the problem that they had. So let's have a little fun having an exercise. So if you, Dusty, if you want to unmute Brandon and Shelly, or whoever else would type in chat, but we're going to have a little exercise here by going through a scenario. So we're a team of people, and I want to say that maybe we have all experienced a common problem in our lives, that maybe you've gotten to a vehicle that is expected to take you somewhere, and yet the vehicle will not start. So if you have experience with this problem in this process, please do say, okay, well, why will the vehicle not start? That's our first question. So in chat, or if you want to unmute, offer up, why do you think the vehicle will not start? Facts.
It's out of gas.
Could be out of gas. It does, yeah. Is the battery dead? Well, it's not in park. I've had that happen too, Elizabeth. But yes, in this scenario, the battery is dead. So Michael, you were spot on. The battery was in fact dead. So why? Why was the battery dead? Why do we think that? In our experience with dead batteries, what causes that? Left the lights on. Done that too. Was the door left open? Was the battery old? Were the lights on? Leaving the light on. Lots of people have experience with leaving lights on. Well, in this case, the team decided that the alternator wasn't functioning. Needs new batteries sometimes. Yep, Sarah. So we have to say, well, why? Why was the alternator not functioning? Why was that alternator not recharging the battery like it needs to? Belt is bad. Holy moly. Yep. Michael, Dustin, yep. The alternator belt was broken. That's what we found out. Well, why? Why was the alternator belt broken? What caused that? Was the belt bad? Chipmunk gnawed on it. Oh no, Alex. Apparently you need to change your belt ever so often. Sarah, right. So the alternator belt was well beyond its useful service life and it wasn't replaced. But if you are a person that doesn't know that, so we've got an expert here brought to the table is, hey, you know, apparently, you know, we all should be aware that the belt needs to be changed every now and then. Well, why? Why was the alternator belt beyond its useful service life and not replaced? We probably didn't know that an alternator belt had a service life. Probably. That's my thought. We never opened the hood. Exactly. There's no alarm on the car that says, hey, replace your alternator belt now. Like, how do you know? Well, the vehicle was not maintained according to the recommended service schedule. So does anybody keep up with the recommended service schedules on their vehicles? I mean, I try to do the oil and whatever else, a Valvoline person or maintenance, or sometimes I get a text message from the dealership I bought the car and says, hey, you're due for maintenance. Yeah, I wait for my car to tell something is wrong. When the car tells me to. Exactly. So this team of people decided that the countermeasure that we could that we put together was, you know, provide the vehicle owner recommended service schedule and emphasize the cost avoidance as a result of adhering to the schedule. So if you know, hey, by the way, you bought this used car and probably another 20,000 miles, you're going to need to replace these things, and here's a discount we might want to give you on it if you do that. It's going to save this much time in your day. It's going to prevent your battery from dying unexpectedly when you're trying to get to a movie at a certain time, whatever. So, did you guys enjoy that exercise? Mechanics profit a ton from the 5 whys. But as you can see, there was an actual time when I had noticed that I have in my bedroom a door that goes outside on our deck, and I went in there and the door was open. Yeah, I mean, you know, bugs are getting in and the air conditioning was going out and the heat was coming in. And so I exercised the 5 whys. I was like, I'm doing it. Why was the door left open? Why was it open? Well, come to find out, after pulling the family members that live in the house with me together, I'm like, okay, we're going to ask 5, you know, why 5 times to get to the solution. Well, what it was that somebody last that had gone outside hadn't closed the door all the way enough where the little notchy thing clicked. And so one of my dogs, when it was ready to come back inside, just kind of leaned on the door and the door opened. So how do we prevent that? Well, from now on, let's try to be mindful of making sure that the door clicks and then we can lock it, and then it would prevent that from happening again. So we don't have all the mosquitoes in the house and all the heat inside. So when do you stop asking why, right? Is the next concept here. So I'm going to play another fun video for you, but you know, first of all, when why produces no more useful responses, and when the countermeasure or process change becomes evident, which I already mentioned that usually and scientifically they say that after you ask why 5 times, that countermeasure should become evident. And if you've identified more than one reason, repeat for each different branches, right? So I'm going to show you this video, though, that will show you an example of what not to do and knowing when you might need to stop. So let's get this kicked off and started. Dun, 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 dun.
Matt, every supposedly technical problem is actually a human problem. That's why we ask the 5 whys.
5 whys.
5 whys. It's an old technique developed by Toyota. You just ask the question why 5 times, and then the nature of the problem, as well as its solution, becomes clear.
Yo, Sagar. Server crashed again.
Not again.
Well, let's do the 5 whys. Why did the server crash?
We pushed a new API to that server.
Why?
We just launched a new feature. It probably used that API the wrong way.
Why?
We have a new engineer who doesn't know how to use that API properly.
Why?
We never trained him.
Why?
Because you didn't want to train him. You sent me an email that said if they can't figure it out, screw them.
Why?
Because as a leader, you're a little bit incompetent and you kind of know it, so you hide behind this tough guy. Like,
okay, you know what? This whole thing is exactly why I would never buy a Toyota.
Well, at least we figured it out, right? See, what seemed like a technical problem is actually a managerial problem.
You know what? We can start offering a training program. I'll just have to cut your salary by 25%.
Why?
Because I can't afford to pay you a full salary and have a training program.
Why?
We don't make enough money for that. We have no revenue coming in.
Why?
Because no one wants to buy what we're making.
Why?
What we're making is worthless.
Why?
I think everyone who works here is incompetent.
Well, then we should stop asking the 5 whys. It's stupid.
Why?
Because I don't want my salary cut.
Why?
Well, I need money to buy things.
Why?
Because that's how I'm programmed by society. That's what society tells me. That's what made me happy.
Why?
Because a few corporations want me to keep buying stuff. You know, I'm like this sheep. You know, the fast food companies fatten me up so then the healthcare industry can slim me back down. I'm just like a pinball being whacked around an arcade so that one man can have it all.
Why?
Because the Illuminati or something?
Oh, man. Gets me every time. Knowing when to stop. Has anybody ever experienced a scenario where you're trying to have this discussion and it kind of goes way out there? So obviously, when you come up with a countermeasure, you want to take action. It's not going to be any benefit to anyone if you come up with a countermeasure and you're like, aha, but then, you know, there's no action to come from it. So if you think about the Jefferson Memorial, if you will, if they wouldn't have taken action and just come up with this countermeasure, they would have never have solved their problem. After you've addressed the root cause, you just have to remember while you're trying to address the root cause of a problem, remember Taiichi Ono, his quote, having no problems is the biggest problem of all. So if you find yourself in a room with people that feel like there's no problem, you might have the wrong people pulled together. You know, if you don't have problems, there's nothing to inspect and there's no action to take. However, how can things ever change for the better if we never have that? Yep, you want to take some action. And then after you do take action, you want to monitor your measures. And what does that mean? Well, remember the Jefferson Memorial example, where just after a couple of whys, they believed they had a countermeasure. But then, you know, and they experimented and they tried a method. But after they monitored the progress or the solution that they put in place, they noticed that it didn't solve the root of the problem. They were still having problems. And it kind of manifested in something even more different. So they went back to the 5 whys and revisited again, which resulted in a second and a different countermeasure, which resulted in solving the problem. And it also had an added benefit of it lowering energy costs. So, you know, once you do take action, you want to be very mindful and deliberate of measuring the progress and not being afraid to say, well, we got that wrong. Let's try something different. In summary, you know, I find that this method is a good method and it's tried and true. We've got some very, you know, it came from some very intelligent and very dedicated, ingenious people way back. who have been very successful in employing it to make a very successful corporation, and benefiting, not only the factories that produce automobiles, but weavers and other kinds of factories. It's good for troubleshooting, problem solving, the quality improvement initiatives. So if you're thinking about why are we getting bugs? Why do we constantly do this? Let's take some time, because every one of those bugs is very costly to the company to fix and to go through other initiatives and whatnot to take correction. So let's do things the right way and get some problems fixed so that we can be creative and create new things instead of constantly fixing things that are broken. And that each answer to the question why must be grounded in fact. So important. And then it being best suited for simple or moderately difficult problems. So as you can see, the 5 whys technique, it's not complicated. It's literally asking 5 whys, why 5 times, coming up with your problem statement. That is one problem, not a paragraph of many problems. And then asking 5 whys, you come down to countermeasures. And in going through this exercise, you will probably, if it's a complex or complicated problem, you will probably find yourself taking multiple paths and going down each one. But prioritize them. Which one do we want to go after first? What do we believe, based on facts, is the number one problem that we could fix and it benefit many other things, perhaps, and go through them priorities. If there's 6 different paths you can take, which one do we feel like maybe is the most impactful? And that's what I have for you all today. We have about 13 minutes, I believe, remaining. This was supposed to go until 12, I believe. So does anybody have any conversation that they'd like to have about the 5 whys? Has anybody leveraged this technique in their areas of work or home? Okay, let's see. Chat, Zara, what if the person doesn't want to answer why? How would you maneuver that, Angela? So first of all, we're bringing together a team of people that are revered in their knowledge and their experience with this particular problem or process. Level setting expectations, are they willing to contribute to coming up with a solution for the problem? If they are not wanting to do that and they're uncomfortable with answering the question why, and they don't want to participate, is there someone else that has equivalent or strong enough knowledge and experience to be able to contribute to the conversation? Because obviously we don't want to waste anybody's time, and we want this collaboration session to be collaborative, not just talking and people coming up with ideas. We want to have ideas, but then grow on those for improvement. And we don't want to be in a position where we're forcing people to participate in a level in which they are uncomfortable or they don't see value in. So we definitely want those folks to be strong, active contributors. And Dustin, is there a work situation you can talk about where you use the 5 whys? Well, yes. So for many years, 7+ years, I was a Scrum Master, certified CSM, and for a few teams in couple different companies. And with that, there would be bugs that would come up, and there's always this arm wrestle of if it's a bug or if it's a new functionality, or but my thing is if there's a customer or even someone that's in another area that might be experiencing this module within the company, and they're experiencing something that they feel like is an unfavorable experience, and they bring it up, regardless if it's considered a bug or a new functionality, let's talk about what's causing the pain. And there have been several scenarios where I've been able to ask if it's not my team that has the specialty of the problem, and they don't quite fully understand it, then I start with the person, okay, who raised the problem? And then who are the experts that will be most familiar with it? And if I've got somebody on my team, perhaps that has the skill set to do something technical to bring to the table but hasn't quite experienced the problem, then what I do is I would facilitate a session so that anyone not familiar with it can actually experience it for themselves. Some people want to say, well, if there's a ticket, it should have, replication steps so that you can repeat the incident. Well, sometimes those steps, when other people follow them, they don't experience the same issue. So it's kind of like, let's go back and watch this person experience the issue and then get some logs and analyze those and figure out what might be causing the problem. There was a particular security issue, more directly, Dustin, that kept coming up to a delivery team that I had with some data, and the team kept believing that it was a false security report from a particular tool that the company was using doing scans, and so they would call it remediated, but then something else would pop up, and it was basically kind of similar. And getting the team to sit down with the person who was performing the security scan to watch what was happening, really kind of dive deep into the facts of like what was causing the security alert. It came to be that my team was right. There wasn't really, what it was detecting was something completely different than what a real security breach would be. So the team, after meeting with the security experts and utilizing their tool and diving into that and focusing on it and driving into that countermeasure of, okay, what is the problem? We were able to tweak the actual scanning tool, and it greatly improved that tool. So that's just one example, but I've used it many, many times with teams that were kind of stuck. I have always claimed that I don't have a problem with making decisions. I can make decisions if I'm forced to, if I need to, if I'm in a situation that it's warranted. But as a Scrum Master, as a servant leader, you don't make decisions for people. But what my claim to fame is I'm really good at helping people make decisions. So asking questions in this 5 whys technique has really helped me. Sometimes I don't have to ask why more than 3 times, and suddenly people are churning and they're, oh, let's go this way. And then there's another team that says, you guys can go that way, but we're going to go this way with this. And then before you know it, they're collaborating and making decisions on what needs to be fixed and tweaked. So it's very helpful with that. Alex, thank you. This has been very helpful to think about. I'm glad you enjoyed that. Do you mind to share a link to the slides if they are available? Brent, I have several presentations that I have experienced that I would like links to, and when those are available, I'm sure that the committee that is running the program will make those available. Okay, Thomas, not just for problems, but use 5 whys to fully flesh out requirements, expectations, and acceptance criteria. That's really interesting, Thomas, and thank you for bringing that up, because about a month ago here at Humana, I was asked by our business analyst community of practice to actually present on this technique. And while I was walking through what you all saw me walk through as far as problem root cause, there was another BA kind of facilitating in this time for us open discussion about how you can use it to prepare requirements. And so she was kind of helping the BAs understand how you can, sometimes business wants to get technical in the nature, but what we really want to hear is requirements. Are they wants, or are they needs, and asking why throughout that process, because then you can determine, well, is that a want or a need? Because you really want to focus on your needs and coming out with those strong requirements around needs, and then kind of focus on the wants next, and then, you know, putting those in proper priority. So that is a great point, Thomas. You can definitely utilize this technique to come up with requirements in your everyday work. Anybody else have any comments or questions? Well, all right then, with 5 minutes to give, I will let you all go and enjoy your bio break, and I hope that you, I hope we get the links, and I hope that you carry forward, and this technique provides much help for you, not only in your professional life, but also your personal. Thanks, Brandon. Bye, guys.
Thank you.
You're welcome.